Funerals are supposed to bury the dead, but sometimes they dig up the living. Unearth rain came steady that March afternoon, a slow drizzle that soaked the cemetery grass and clung to the black umbrellas like a curse. Daniel O'Connor stood stiff at the graveside, his jaw set, his eyes hidden behind dark glasses. He hadn't cried in 20 years, and he wasn't about to start now. Beside him, Clara clutched her rosary with trembling hands, lips moving silently in prayer. A few feet back, Michael shifted uncomfortably, his suit borrowed and ill-fitting, the cigarette behind his ear betraying the fact that he hadn't changed much since his teenage years. NNTHE casket lowered into the earth with a dull mechanical groan. The priest spoke of James O'Connor as a decorated veteran, a pillar of the community, a man of industry who had provided jobs for hundreds at the steel factory. But the words rang hollow to those who knew better. Rumors had always swirled about the envelopes exchanged in back rooms, the friends who visited at odd hours, the unexplained wealth that kept the estate afloat even after the factory shuttered. When the service ended, the siblings didn't linger. Old neighbors offered stiff condolences. Clara forced a polite smile, while Daniel ignored them entirely. Michael muttered a few words before lighting his cigarette the second they reached the parking lot. NNTHE family estate loomed at the edge of town, an enormous brick house whose grandeur had long since faded. The shutters sagged, the once proud garden choked by weeds. Inside, the air carried the smell of old wood and dust, as if time itself had stopped. In the study, a lawyer named Charles Hargrove waited, his leather briefcase perched neatly on the desk. He was a thin man with sharp features, spectacles perched at the end of his nose. "Thank you all for coming," he began, unfolding papers with precise care. "Your father left behind an estate of considerable size. But before I proceed, I must warn you, there are unusual stipulations." Daniel crossed his arms. "Just read it." NNCLARA sat rigid, nervous. Michael sprawled in a chair, blowing smoke toward the ceiling. NNHAR Grove cleared his throat. "Mr. O'Connor has left the physical property, the house, the land, and what remains of the factory trust, to his 3 children, to be shared equally. However, he also made reference to," the lawyer hesitated, peering at the page, "certain documents of great value. He did not specify their nature, only that they are located somewhere on the estate. His words, not mine. What I built was more than steel. What I leave behind will decide who truly knows me." And heavy silence followed, and Daniel's mouth tightened. Typical. He always loved his games. Michael leaned forward, interest sparking. "Documents? That sounds like cash to me. Or maybe secrets someone would pay for." Clara's voice broke through, sharp with disapproval. "You can't be serious. Whatever it is, we should destroy it. If it's what I think it is, it should have been buried with him." Michael snorted. "Easy for you to say, St. Clara. Some of us could use the money," NNTHE lawyer pressed on, uncomfortable. "One more note. He insisted all 3 of you must be present in this house for 3 nights following the funeral, or the estate will be forfeited to the county." He was insistent on that condition. One of Clara's rosary beads clicked nervously. 3 nights? Here? Daniel exhaled slowly. "So that's it. We're trapped in this mausoleum for a weekend, digging through the rot of our father's life." Michael grinned, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Could be fun. Like a treasure hunt." In BUT. Even as he said it, the wind rattled the old windows, and a faint creak echoed upstairs, though no one had been there in years. NTHE siblings exchanged uneasy glances. And as the lawyer packed his papers and prepared to leave, Michael muttered, "If Dad really hid something here, you know we're not the only ones who'd want it." From the shadowed corner of the room, a floorboard creaked again, louder this time. Someone else was in the house. Some houses keep their secrets buried. Others whisper them in the dark. NNTHE rain turned to sleet by nightfall, pelting the cracked windows of the O'Connor estate. The siblings had agreed to stay, though agree was too generous a word. The stipulation in the will left them no choice. The 3 of them sat around the dining table, its once polished oak surface dulled by decades of neglect. A single lamp cast a dim pool of light over their tired faces. Daniel, as always, tried to take control. He had spread a yellowed floor plan of the house across the table. "We'll divide up tomorrow, start searching the study, the attic, the cellar. If there are documents, they'll be hidden somewhere deliberate." Father wasn't careless. Michael smirked, sipping whiskey straight from the bottle he'd found in a cabinet. "You sound like a detective. Too bad you're just a lawyer." Clara shot him a look. "Can't you take this seriously? Whatever he hid, it could hurt people. It could destroy what little good is left of his name." Or, Michael countered, "It could save me from driving a truck for minimum wage the rest of my life." Daniel slammed his palm on the table. "Enough. We'll work together, at least until we know what we're dealing with." The room fell silent. Outside, wind howled through the trees. Later that evening, Clara retired to her old bedroom. The wallpaper was faded. The bed frame squeaked with every movement. She unpacked a small bag, set her rosary on the nightstand, and whispered a prayer for strength. But sleep would not come. Somewhere above her, in the attic, faint footsteps moved slowly across the floorboards. She froze, clutching her blanket. The others were downstairs. She was certain of it. Meanwhile, Daniel lingered in the study, flipping through the ledgers his father had left behind. He found lists of shipments, coded entries, and names he didn't recognize. But one caught his eye: Russo. He knew that name from headlines years ago: local mob families, racketeering charges. His father had sworn he had no dealings with them. Daniel's stomach tightened. In the kitchen, Michael rummaged through cabinets, half drunk, half curious. He stumbled on a locked drawer in the bottom of an old sideboard. Kicking it open, he found a small, dust-covered box. Inside were envelopes filled with cash, old bills, neatly bundled. His eyes widened. "Hello, Dad," he whispered with a crooked grin. But beneath the money lay something else. A small pistol, wrapped in oilcloth. Discovery sobered him instantly. A loud thud upstairs made him jump. He tucked the box under his arm and ran to the hallway just as Clara emerged, pale and shaken. "You heard it too?" she whispered. "Yeah," Michael muttered, clutching the box tighter. "Thought it was you." Daniel appeared from the study, his face grim. "The attic. Someone's up there." A long moment. None of them moved. Then Daniel grabbed a fire poker from beside the hearth, nodding toward the staircase. "We check it. Together." Climb was slow, the steps groaning under their weight. At the top, the narrow attic door loomed. Michael pushed it open with his shoulder, the hinges screeching like a warning. Attic was cold, dust thick in the air. Broken trunks, old furniture, and moth-eaten clothes crowded the space. A single bulb swung from the ceiling, casting eerie shadows. See?" Michael muttered, forcing bravado. "Just junk." Daniel crouched, pointing at the floor. Fresh footprints trailed across the dust, leading toward a corner stacked with crates. The three of them exchanged tense glances. Daniel whispered, "We're not alone." Michael lifted the pistol he'd found, his hands trembling. Clara gasped, "Where did you?" Before he could answer, the bulb overhead flickered, then went out. The attic plunged into darkness. A voice broke the silence, low and unfamiliar, from somewhere in the shadows. "You shouldn't have come back here. Sometimes it isn't the dead who haunt us, but the living." Attic was black as pitch, the air stale with dust. The siblings froze where they stood, every nerve tight with fear. Michael clutched the pistol with both hands, his breath quickening. Daniel lifted the fire poker defensively, his lawyer's composure slipping for the first time. Clara whispered a prayer under her breath, clutching her rosary so tightly the beads dug into her palm. Voice came again, calm but menacing. "You should have left it all buried." "Who's there?" Daniel demanded, his voice echoing in the rafters in a shuffle of movement. Then silence. Michael swung the gun wildly in the dark. "Show yourself." Clara hissed, "Put that thing down before you shoot one of us." And a faint glow appeared in the far corner. A lighter flicked to life, illuminating the face of a man crouched among the crates. He was gaunt, with hollow eyes, clothes ragged, hair matted, as if he hadn't seen a proper bed in months. He looked at them with a strange mixture of defiance and desperation. "Name's Aaron," he muttered. "And before you call the cops, you should know your old man owed me more than just money." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "You knew our father?" Aaron gave a short, bitter laugh. "Knew him? I worked for him. Back when this house still smelled of cigars and power, when men like Russo came through the back door with briefcases you weren't supposed to open." He pointed at Daniel with the lighter, the flame trembling in his hand. "Your father wasn't just a steel man. He moved things. Weapons. Documents. Secrets people killed for." Clara's face went pale. "Lies. He may have been harsh, but he wasn't." And Aaron cut her off with a sneer. "Don't paint him a saint, lady. He built an empire of shadows, and when it started to collapse, he left people like me holding the ruins." Michael's eyes glinted. "So these documents we're supposed to find, they're worth something?" Aaron's silence was answer enough. Daniel stepped forward, the fire poker still raised. "Why are you here?" "Because," Aaron said quietly, "whatever your father left behind, it doesn't belong to you." Before anyone could respond, a loud bang echoed from outside, the sound of a car door slamming shut. Headlights swept across the attic windows. Aaron's head snapped toward the sound. Panic flickered across his face. "They found me," he whispered. "Knew?" Clara demanded. Aaron extinguished the lighter, plunging them back into darkness. "If you want to live, don't answer the door." Heavy fists pounded on the front door below, rattling the old wood. A muffled voice shouted, "Open up, O'Connors! We know what your father left behind." An NTHE sibling stood frozen, the house echoing with the sound of their father's unfinished past, crashing through the present. Michael looked at Daniel, then at the pistol in his hand. "Well, brother," he muttered, "looks like Dad left us more than just an inheritance. Question is, do we fight for it or die for it?" Some debts never die. They just arrive late at night, demanding payment. NNTHE pounding at the front door grew louder, each strike echoing through the hollow house. Clara pressed her hands over her ears, whispering, "Oh God, not again, not again." Daniel put a finger to his lips, signaling silence. Michael gripped the pistol tighter, his eyes bright with reckless energy. From the attic, they crept down the stairs, careful to avoid the creaks that might betray them. Aaron, the ragged intruder, trailed behind like a shadow, his face pale with dread. "Who are they?" Daniel hissed in. "Not cops," Aaron muttered. "Russo's men. Been circling this place for weeks. Your father promised them something he never delivered. Now they think you have it." NNTHE pounding stopped. A new sound followed, the scraping of metal against the lock. Someone was trying to force the door. Michael raised the pistol. "We should hit first. Take them by surprise." Clara spun on him, her voice fierce despite her trembling hands. "And what then? Murder them in Father's house? That's the legacy you want? Better than ending up in a ditch." Michael shot back. Daniel stepped between them, voice low but firm. "We hold our ground. Nobody fires a shot unless I say so." NNTHE lock clicked, and the door creaked open. A cold gust swept into the hall as two men stepped inside, both wearing heavy coats, their eyes sharp and unyielding. One was broad-shouldered with a scar down his cheek. The other, younger, carried a baseball bat wrapped in tape. Nez Carface spoke first. "Evening, O'Connors. Apologies for the intrusion, but your old man left us unfinished business." His eyes flicked around the house, calculating. "We're here to collect." Daniel straightened, poker in hand. "This is private property. You're trespassing." NTHE's scarred man laughed softly. "Lawyer, huh? I can smell it. Always so polite until the blood spills." Michael stepped forward, the pistol half raised. "He's not lying. You've got 5 seconds to leave." NTHE two intruders exchanged a glance. Then the younger one chuckled. "Relax, kid. We're not here to kill you. Not tonight. We just want what belongs to us." He tilted his chin toward the upstairs. "Your father's papers? He kept records, names, routes, deals." The kind of thing that puts people in prison. Hand them over, and we disappear. And Aaron shifted uncomfortably in the shadows. The scarred man's gaze caught him. Well, look who it is. Thought you'd skip town, Aaron. Aaron stiffened, his voice hoarse. I told you, I don't have it. I never had it. NTHE scarred man smirked. Then maybe these nice O'Connor children do. Tension strangled the room. Daniel's grip tightened on the poker. Michael's finger hovered on the trigger. Clara's breath came fast and shallow. Then, without warning, glass shattered in the back of the house. A rock clattered onto the kitchen tiles. More footsteps outside. More voices. They're surrounding us, Aaron whispered. E2NTHE scarred man smiled coldly. Looks like we're all trapped in here together. So why don't we start tearing this place apart until we find what we came for? Before Daniel could respond, the younger thug swung his bat at a cabinet, splintering the wood. Clara screamed, covering her ears. Michael leveled the gun, fury flashing in his eyes. Daniel hissed through clenched teeth. Don't. NBUT. The gunshot thundered through the house, deafening. Final. NNTHE younger man dropped the bat, blood blossoming on his shoulder. NS Carface snarled, pulling a knife. You just made this a war. Outside, more voices shouted as reinforcements closed in. Inside, the siblings realized what Michael had done. There would be no turning back. When the past comes hunting, even home becomes a battlefield. NNTHE gunshot still echoed when the house fell into chaos. Clara clutched her ears, screaming, Michael, what have you done? The younger thug groaned on the floor, clutching his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. Scarface's knife gleamed under the hall light as he lunged forward. Daniel swung the poker with all his strength, catching Scarface across the jaw. The man staggered back, snarling, but didn't fall in. Upstairs, Daniel shouted. Move! NTHE siblings scrambled, dragging Clara with them. Michael fired another shot, this one hitting the doorframe and sending splinters flying. The intruders cursed and dove for cover as the O'Connors bounded up the staircase. Aaron followed, panting, muttering curses under his breath. They slammed into a bedroom, locking the door behind them. Daniel leaned against it, chest heaving. We can't hold them off forever. Michael waved the pistol, adrenaline pulsing. One down, more to go. We make a stand. NCLARA grabbed his arm, tears streaking her face. Do you hear yourself? You've turned this house into a war zone. This house already was a war zone. Aaron spat, pacing. Your father built it that way. Every wall, every secret, every enemy. It's all catching up now. Below, the wounded thug groaned. Scarface barked orders. More footsteps circled outside, shadows crossing the windows. The house moaned under the pressure of old grudges resurrected. A loud crash erupted from the kitchen. Glass breaking, boots stomping. Someone had forced their way in. Then another crash, this time from the back porch. They're in, Daniel whispered. Michael chambered another round. Good, let them come. No. Clara stepped between them, trembling but defiant. If father left records, then maybe they're worth something. Maybe enough to stop this bloodshed. She turned to Aaron. Where are they? You knew him. Tell us. Aaron's eyes flickered. For a moment, he looked like a trapped animal. Finally, he muttered, Attic. Hidden compartment. Under the floorboards near the east window. He made me help install it, back in, 78. I thought he just wanted to hide cash, but he stashed papers too. Ledgers, photographs, blackmail. Daniel's face went cold. If that's true, then handing them over could doom half this town. Politicians, cops, maybe even judges. And if we don't? Michael snapped. We die tonight. I'm not dying for Dad's sins. Bang! The bedroom door shook under a heavy kick. Clara screamed, clutching Daniel's arm. End decision time. Aaron hissed. Fight them. Or deal. Daniel's mind raced. Lawyer instincts and brotherly duty colliding. Then he said quietly, We get the records. But no one outside this family sees them until we decide what they're worth. Another kick. The wood splintered. The lock began to give. Michael raised the gun at the door. Guess we better buy some time. Clara sobbed, whispering, Please. God and The door burst open. Scarface and 2 others stormed inside. Michael fired. Daniel swung the poker. Aaron dove for cover. Clara screamed as the room exploded into violence. And over it all, the faint sound of something ticking. Not a clock. Not a watch. Something hidden, mechanical, buried in the walls of the house. Nene's fists and bullets flew. Daniel froze, realization dawning. He left more than records. He whispered. He left a trap. Sometimes the dead speak louder than the living. The room reeked of gunpowder and sweat. Michael's pistol smoked in his hand. Scarface staggered against the wall with a bleeding gash from Daniel's poker, and the 2 other men dragged the wounded thug from the floor, shouting curses as they retreated down the hall. Daniel didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the wall, on the faint, rhythmic ticking that pulsed through the plaster like a heartbeat. What is that? Clara whispered, clutching his sleeve. Michael shrugged, reloading. A clock. Who cares? We've got bigger problems. No, Daniel said firmly, his voice low but certain. Not a clock. Listen. They all fell silent. Tick, tick, tick. Too deliberate, too steady. Not a random creak of an old house, but something mechanical. And Aaron's face went pale. Oh, God, he did it. Daniel turned sharply. What did he do? And Aaron hesitated, then whispered, Your father. He used to joke about booby-trapping the place. Said if anyone ever came hunting for his past, he'd make sure they got burned for it. We thought it was just talk. But I helped him rewire some of the walls back in '78. Told myself it was for insulation. But what if NNTHE ticking grew louder? Michael swore, looking around wildly. You're telling me this whole damn house is a bomb? Not a bomb, Daniel muttered, thinking fast. A trap, maybe wired to the safe places, the hidden compartments. He didn't want anyone touching what was his. NNS Carface groaned from the floor, half-conscious, but his eyes lit with sudden fear. You idiots don't get it. If that goes off, none of us walk out. Clara's breath caught. She turned on Aaron, her voice shaking with fury. You knew. You knew father was dangerous, and you still stayed. Aaron shouted back, desperation spilling out. He saved me. He pulled me out of the gutter when I was nothing but a junkie. I owed him everything. If he told me to dig holes in the walls, I did it. And bang. Another crash downstairs. Reinforcements tearing through the house. Daniel grabbed Michael's arm. We have to get to the attic. If the records are up there, maybe the mechanism is too. Maybe we can shut it down. Clara's eyes darted between them. And if you're wrong? Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he pushed her toward the hall. Move! They raced through the dark corridors, the sound of shouts and boots below them. The ticking followed, seeping from the walls like a predator's growl. NNTHE attic door groaned as Daniel forced it open. Dust swirled in the beam of Clara's trembling flashlight. Boxes stacked high, old furniture covered in sheets, the stale smell of mothballs and secrets. And there! Aaron pointed to the east window, where a loose section of floorboard jutted out. Michael knelt, pried it up, and revealed a small metal case. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, lay ledgers bound in cracked leather, photographs yellowed with time, and envelopes marked with names, powerful names. Daniel's hand shook as he lifted one. Photographs of local politicians shaking hands with known mobsters. A ledger listing payments to police officers, judges, even a senator. NNCLARA covered her mouth. This could tear apart everything. NBUT Michael's eyes glittered with greed. This could buy us everything. Suddenly, The ticking surged, louder, faster. Daniel spun toward the wall. It's wired to the box. Taking it out triggered something. Aaron backed away, whispering, he really did it. He really set the house to burn with his sins. From below, Scarface's voice bellowed up the stairwell. O'Connors, hand over the files, or we torch the place with you in it. NBUT, the house was already torching itself. A faint hiss joined the ticking, the smell of gasoline seeping from the floorboards. Clara screamed, it's rigged to ignite. Daniel's pulse thundered. He looked at his siblings, at the damning papers in his hands, and realized they had only seconds to decide. The O'Connors stood in the attic, surrounded by secrets and gasoline fumes, as their father's final trap counted down. Do we burn it? Daniel demanded, or do we burn with it? Some inheritances are meant to destroy, not enrich. NNTHE attic felt alive. Walls groaning, fumes thickening, the tick-tick-tick swelling like a drumbeat of doom. Daniel's throat burned with the smell of gasoline. Michael clutched the ledgers like a drowning man with a life raft, while Clara sobbed into her hands, whispering prayers. Drop them. Daniel ordered. Michael's eyes blazed. Are you insane? These papers are worth millions. They'll buy our safety, buy our freedom. They'll kill us before we ever cash them in, Daniel snapped. Father set this house to burn his sins. If we hold on to them, we burn too. Aaron coughed, waving away fumes. He's right. The mechanism's wired into the house. Once it's primed, the fire goes everywhere. Below, Scarface shouted, his voice echoing up the stairs. You've got 1 minute, O'Connors. Bring the box, or we'll drag it out of your ashes. NNTHE sound of footsteps, the rattle of matches. They weren't bluffing. Michael raised the pistol, his hand shaking. Then we fight our way out. Father fought. He survived. So can we. Daniel stepped forward, his voice low but hard. And look where that got him. Look at this house. Look at us. He jabbed a finger at the papers. All his enemies, all his allies, they're still fighting over his ghost. Do you want to become him, Michael? And then FOR a moment. Michael's face softened. Then it hardened again. I want to live. NNTHE, ticking accelerated, sharp and merciless. Somewhere deep in the walls, a hiss turned into a low roar. NNCLARA screamed, It's starting! NNTHE floor beneath them shook. Flames burst through the seams of the boards, orange tongues licking up from below. Smoke filled the attic, choking, blinding. Out the window, Daniel shouted. He dropped the papers, grabbed Clara by the arm, and dragged her toward the east window. Michael hesitated, clutching the box, torn between greed and survival, and Aaron shoved him hard. You want to live? Then jump! NNTHE old window groaned as Daniel smashed it open with a chair. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the distant wail of sirens. He shoved Clara out first, then Aaron. Michael clambered next, still clutching the case, and Daniel was last. He turned just as the attic exploded with fire, the gasoline-fed flames devouring boxes, furniture, memories. The ledgers he hadn't grabbed curled into ash in seconds, and Daniel. Clara screamed from below. He leapt, tumbling into the grass as heat seared his back. The house roared like a wounded beast, flames consuming it from within. They scrambled to their feet, coughing, eyes watering. Michael staggered, holding the case tight against his chest, even as his shirt smoked with embers. NNS Carface and his men emerged from the shadows, weapons drawn, firelight flickering across their faces. Behind them, the house burned, silhouetting the night sky with a glow that could be seen for miles. NNS Carface grinned through his split lip. Looks like Daddy's sins finally came home. Hand it over, and maybe you live. Michael tightened his grip, raising the pistol. But his hand shook. The fire behind them roared, embers raining down like stars. Daniel stepped forward, placing himself between his brother and the gunman. His voice was hoarse but steady. You want the truth? The house is gone. The rest burned with it. All we have is this box. And maybe that's all Father ever wanted. His children to die over scraps. NNS Carface's grin faltered. He tilted his head, considering. Then he barked, Then give me the scraps. Michael's knuckles whitened on the case. His breath came ragged. Clara clutched his arm, whispering through tears, "Please, Michael. Don't let his curse kill us." NTHE sirens grew louder. Blue and red lights flickered through the trees. Time had run out. Michael raised the pistol. Everyone froze. And then he turned the barrel. Michael pressed the gun not toward Scarface, but toward the box. His voice cracked as he whispered, "If no one can have it, maybe that's the only way we live." Sometimes survival means destroying the very thing you fought to find. NNTHE fire's glow painted the field in crimson. Smoke rolled across the lawn, hiding the stars. The O'Connors stood in a circle of heat and gunmetal, with Scarface and his men closing in. And Michael, with the gun pressed to the metal case, stood at the center, trembling like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. "Michael," Daniel said quietly, hands raised, "put the gun down. We'll figure this out." Michael's jaw clenched. "There's nothing to figure out. If we give them the box, we die. If we keep it, they hunt us forever. The only way out is to erase it. To erase him." NNS Carface barked a laugh, though unease flickered in his eyes. "You won't do it, boy. You're too much like your old man. He'd never burn gold. Maybe that's the problem," Michael whispered, and Clara's sob cut through the smoke. She reached for him, her voice raw with desperation. "Please, Michael, we can't lose you too. Father's shadow took everything else. Don't let it take us." Daniel's heart pounded. He saw his brother's hands shaking, the sweat streaking his soot-stained face. He saw the boy Michael had been, the brother who had once shielded him from their father's wrath, who had fixed his bicycle, who had dreamed of escape. "Michael," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "Don't let him win." NTHE moment hung, stretched taut by fire and fear. Then Michael pulled the trigger. NTHE gunshot cracked like thunder. The case flew open, torn by the blast, papers spilling into the night. Fire licked at the ledgers, devouring them as they hit the burning grass. Photographs curled, inked names blackened, secrets dissolved into smoke. NNS Carface screamed. His men surged forward, desperate to snatch even a scrap of evidence, but Daniel moved fast. He tackled one to the ground, fists flying. Michael fired again, dropping another with a wounded leg. Clara grabbed a burning branch and swung with surprising fury, forcing the thugs back. NNTHE sirens wailed closer. Police lights strobed against the inferno. Scarface cursed, spitting blood. "This isn't over, O'Connors. You just signed your death warrants." He dragged his men toward the trees, disappearing into the night as the house collapsed in a roar of flame. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of fire and the gasp of breath. Michael dropped to his knees, the ruined case beside him. His pistol clattered into the grass. Tears streaked through the soot on his face. "It's gone," he whispered. "Everything he built. Gone." Daniel knelt beside him, gripping his shoulder. "No, not everything. We're still here. And maybe that's the one thing he never wanted." NNCLARA sank to the ground, clutching both brothers. They held each other in the glow of the fire, as the house that had defined them for so long crumbled to ash. NNBUT, even as relief washed over them, Daniel's eyes darkened. For in the smoke he had seen Scarface's expression, not just rage but certainty. Certainty that something had survived. And when the firemen pulled them away, dragging hoses into the blaze, Daniel's suspicion hardened into dread. Because his father had never been careless. If there was one box of secrets, there had to be another. As dawn broke over the smoking ruins, Daniel whispered to himself, "If father left one box, he left more. And somewhere out there, the real inheritance still waits." Some ghosts hide not in flames, but in what survives them. NNTHE ruins of the O'Connor estate smoldered through the night, blackened beams collapsing into the pit where the family's life had once stood. Firemen sprayed what remained, though little could be saved. By morning, all that was left was ash, twisted iron, and silence. Daniel stood apart from the others, staring into the wreckage. His mind replayed Scarface's expression, the smirk that didn't belong to a man who had lost. No, it was the look of someone who still believed he held the winning card. Michael approached, bandaged hand trembling as he lit a cigarette. "So, That's it. All gone. His voice was brittle, too casual to be true. Daniel shook his head. No, father never put all his eggs in one basket. That box was just bait. He wanted anyone chasing his fortune to think it ended in fire. Michael exhaled smoke, bitterness curling in his tone. You're saying there's more? After everything? After burning half our lives down? Clara joined them, her face lined with exhaustion, but her eyes sharp. Your father, he always had backups. He kept copies of ledgers, duplicates of deeds. He was paranoid, but clever. If the house was rigged to burn, then somewhere else, there must be a vault. Aaron, standing a few steps behind, cleared his throat. I've heard whispers, down at the docks. Men used to say Thomas O'Connor had a second ledger, a real one. Not just debts and payments, but names. Names that could still ruin people today. Daniel turned. Where? Aaron shifted uncomfortably. Philadelphia, an old storage yard. Some claimed he rented a sealed container under another name. Rumor was, only blood could unlock it. His sons, maybe. Michael cursed under his breath. So it never ends. He's been dead 15 years, and still he drags us back. Daniel placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. We can't leave it. If Scarface finds it first, he'll use it to finish what father started. Michael's jaw worked, torn between rage and fear. Clara whispered, Then we go together. This time, we finish it as a family. NNTHAT night, as they drove north, memories pressed in like fog. Clara stared out the window, seeing not the road but the past. Thomas O'Connor at the head of the dining table, his voice booming, his hands gripping the family tighter than chains. She had lived in his shadow, feared his wrath, and even now, she felt his presence. At a truck stop, Daniel stepped aside to call Sheriff Boone. The old lawman's voice rasped through the line. You think you've burned your way free? Fool boy. Thomas never kept his worst sins under his own roof. I told you once. His empire reached farther than this town. If you're chasing that ledger, you're chasing the devil himself. Daniel's grip tightened on the phone. Then I need to know where to find him. There was silence. Then Boone's weary sigh. Pier 17. Philadelphia. Ask for the Harborview storage yard. But be warned, son. Your father didn't just hide money. He hid murders. Every page in that book bleeds. NNTHE line went dead. And they reached Philadelphia under cover of night. The docks loomed. Vast warehouses, rusting cranes, the smell of salt and diesel thick in the air. Harborview Yard was fenced, locked, guarded by a single weary watchman. Beyond the fence, rows of shipping containers stretched like tombstones. Daniel's heart pounded. Somewhere in that graveyard of steel lay the final truth. Michael flexed his injured hand, eyes darting nervously. Clara clutched her rosary. Aaron pulled a crowbar from the trunk. Ready? Daniel asked, and NO1 answered. But they moved forward anyway. They slipped inside the yard, weaving between containers, their footsteps echoing. The night was silent, but for the lap of water against the piers. Then Daniel froze. NNTHE lock on one container hung broken, swinging loose in the breeze. NNHE approached, pulse hammering. The door creaked open. Inside, dim light revealed stacks of old crates, tarps, and, at the center, a single iron chest, its surface etched with the faint letters. O'Connor. Daniel stepped closer. From the shadows behind the chest came a voice. Took you long enough. A Scarface stepped into the light, pistol gleaming, his grin wide. Your father left more than a ledger. He left an heir. And maybe it isn't you. Some inheritances demand blood before they reveal the truth. NNTHE iron chest sat in the dim light of the Harborview storage yard, silent but foreboding. Daniel, Clara, Michael, and Aaron froze as Scarface stepped from the shadows, his pistol raised, grin wide and cruel. You've been chasing ghosts, he said, voice cold. And now you've found the trap. Michael's hands shook around the chest, but he didn't release it. We're not afraid of you, he spat, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. NNS Scarface laughed. You should be. Your father, he wasn't just a steel man, not just a war hero. He was a maker of empires. And empires, they demand heirs. One of you is the true heir, and the rest of you? Well, he tapped the pistol, letting the threat hang. Daniel stepped forward, fire in his eyes. "If you want to kill us, you'll die trying. The moment you touch this chest, you're dead." And as Scarface's grin faltered. Bold words, but words don't matter when this chest contains. He trailed off, his eyes narrowing. He hid names, payments, deals, proof that could topple half the state, and the blood to back it up. And the first name, he pointed at Daniel, is yours. Clara gasped. "Daniel? What are you talking about?" Aaron whispered, voice trembling. "The ledger. Your father recorded everything. Whoever opens it controls everything he built. Whoever owns it owns the leverage over life and death." Scarface raised the gun. "Step aside. The chest is mine now." Michael shook his head, rage breaking through. "No, I've seen what it does. I've seen what it costs. You won't touch it." He slammed his foot down, kicking the chest toward Scarface. The movement startled him just long enough. Daniel lunged, tackling Scarface, sending the gun skidding across the floor. Clara and Aaron dove to help. Fists flew, dust rose, and the night erupted into chaos. On the struggle, the chest tipped. The lock broke. Papers spilled across the concrete floor, envelopes torn open, photographs fluttering in the breeze. Names stared back at them, damning evidence of corruption, crime, and murder. The weight of decades pressed down on the siblings. Scarface grabbed a handful of documents, eyes widening as he scanned them. Where's the money? Where's the leverage?" Michael stepped forward, voice low but resolute. "Gone. Burned. All of it. You won't get anything from him, from us, or from this ledger. Not now. Not ever." Scarface's face twisted in fury. He raised the gun again, but the distant wail of sirens cut through the night. Police cars surged toward the docks, blue and red lights washing over the containers. Scarface cursed, dragging his men, fleeing into the shadows. The ledger remained, scattered, its power neutralized by the siblings' choice. Daniel bent down, gathering the papers. "We decide what to do with this. Together. No one else touches it." Clara's hand found Michael's. "We survived. That's what matters. The rest, we control." Aaron stepped back, relief washing over him. "Your father, he wanted to test you, to see if you'd fall for greed or rise above it. You passed." Michael exhaled slowly, the fire of anger and fear leaving his body. "We survived him," he muttered. "Finally." The siblings looked out over the water. Dawn broke, painting the harbor gold. The ashes of the past lay behind them, but the knowledge remained, heavy, dangerous, and undeniable. Daniel folded the remaining papers carefully. "We can bury them, or we can use them to fix the damage. But we do it together. No one left behind." That was his final lesson. Clara nodded, tears glinting in the sunlight. Together. Michael glanced at the rising sun, the warmth on his face. For the first time. "I think we're free." Harbor was quiet except for the soft lapping of water and the distant cries of gulls. The O'Connors had faced fire, betrayal, and blood, and emerged as one, a family scarred but unbroken. The inheritance of ashes had been claimed, but not by greed, not by vengeance. By survival, and by the strength to choose what truly mattered. And somewhere in the shadows, the past whispered. But this time, they were ready. An end.